Today we're going to be taking a look at The Coffee Table, the long-awaited sequel to the critically acclaimed movie, The Living Room Table. Coming out of Spain, so you know this movie is going to be particularly psychologically damaging, director Kay Casas stated that while he enjoys horror films, he wasn't exactly scared by the traditional supernatural trappings of the genre, so wanted to create a film based on the random cruelty of life. So with that being said, he made a movie about Spanish people. Heading into this, it's worth mentioning that, in a way, this movie is actually described as a black comedy, in that life is horrifically awful, and all we can do is laugh at it. A comedy made for people whose sense of humour is delighted by the little things in life, like babies. And speaking of which, the movie immediately begins with a woman struggling to do a really big poo, but when it comes out, it starts crying like a baby for some reason. We then see that woman, Maria, with her husband Jesus, and their newborn son, Cayetano, as they're in a furniture store, arguing about buying a clearly fake gold-plated, supposedly unbreakable coffee table. A coffee table that the salesman promises would change their life if they owned it. Change their life in the same way that syphilis would change it. Maria absolutely hates it and thinks that its design is tacky and non-flattering, while Jesus is adamant that this is the coffee table that they will be purchasing today, due to Maria having the final say on absolutely everything else that they've bought in their new home. So, out of pride, stupidity, and probably a little bit of both, despite Maria's feelings on the matter being quite clear, Jesus buys the table anyway. A table that he's forced to carry up his apartment block stairs all by himself, because his son is too weak and pathetic to help him. But after making it to the front door, the couple are stopped by their neighbour and her 13-year-old daughter named Ruth. But once Maria and the little girl's mother have gone, Ruth begins talking to Jesus as if they have some sort of pre-existing relationship, expressing her desire for him to tell his wife Maria about their relationship so that they can be together instead. A relationship that Jesus clearly doesn't want, and one that clearly doesn't exist, as apparently she was the one who tried to kiss him in an elevator one time after asking for some help with schoolwork, which now has somehow led to the conclusion in her head that they're both actually madly in love with each other, and there's no other possibility except them being together forever. But as Jesus isn't exactly in the mood for grooming mentally unwell children like your average Roblox YouTuber, he tries to gently let her down without creating a massive fallout. After heading back in and starting to build the coffee table, Jesus realizes that he's missing one of the screws that he would need to fit the glass in place securely with. So he leans the glass section against the legs of the table and demands over the phone that the man from the furniture store personally brings him the screws required to build this incredibly expensive coffee table that kinda just looks really bad. And after having a passionate conversation with a fellow Spaniard about a screw, Jesus is left alone with the baby for the first time since he was born, as Maria is going out to purchase some supplies for when Jesus' brother Carlos and his new girlfriend Cristina come over later for dinner. And living up to all wives' beliefs that husbands are actually completely useless, almost immediately as Maria leaves, the baby starts uncontrollably crying, not being able to find the off switch on it anywhere. While walking back and forth with him trying to comfort him, Jesus accidentally factory resets him instead by tripping over something, followed by the loud sound of glass breaking, preceded by the suspiciously absent sound of a baby crying. Jesus had slipped over something and landed on the plane of glass that was facing upwards, and has accidentally decapitated his own son. Don't you just hate it when that happens? He kneels there in a frozen state, staring down at what used to be his son, which is now only 3/4 of his son, unable to even emotionally comprehend what it is that's just happened. Jesus is unable to do anything but exist in this incredibly traumatic moment alone for a short while, when suddenly his phone rings. While out at the store, Maria had bumped into an old friend who knows the both of them, and after Maria has talked to her about how much of a hard and difficult journey it's been for her to get pregnant, and that she finally managed to conceive after being on treatment for 2 years, Maria called up Jesus so their old friend can congratulate him on becoming a father, and also congratulate him on his world record speedrun of not becoming a father. After hanging up and pulling out the broken shards of glass, which are deeply embedded into his hands, from the supposedly unbreakable table, he changes the baby's diaper before taking the baby, well, what's left of the baby, to lie down in his crib. Panicked and unsure what to do about this, his initial thought is to try and hide it. But because they've just moved into this apartment and they don't own any cleaning supplies, he's forced to go to his neighbour's house to ask if he can borrow some, stating that he accidentally made a mess while painting the baby's room red. After the mother leaves, while Jesus is already in a state of complete shock and despair, Ruth tells him that he has until this afternoon to tell his wife about their completely fictitious relationship that she made up in her head, or she's going to be the one to do it herself. And to make matters even more worse, after leaving their apartment and heading back to his own, he bumps into the furniture salesman who personally made the journey to reunite the lost screw with its owner. The lost screw that led to the death death of his infant son. His infant son, who would likely still be alive right now if the screw was originally there, because Jesus would have been able to finish assembling the table when he originally attempted to put it together. But because fate is a bitch and also racist against the Spanish, that's not how things played out. As the man is quite frankly talking directly at Jesus and not with him, Jesus is attempting to leave this awkward situation to head back to his other awkward situation, when suddenly, the man proceeds to start hitting on him while talking about not having many friends of his own. After finally being left alone by the screwman and the slightly demented 13-year-old girl, Jesus tries to wash away any evidence of what occurred with him and his new coffee table. But while he's on the floor, scrubbing a stain that definitely will not come out, he discovers his son's head that he's left beneath a living room chair. A head that he simply cannot bring himself to pick up no matter what he does, so instead decides that the next best thing to do is to leave it there to add some extra feng shui to the room. After cleaning himself up and bandaging his hand, Maria returns home but doesn't have her keys, so Jesus needs to let her inside. And as she's ringing the doorbell, he's standing out on the balcony, contemplating going for a quick jump instead. But he doesn't do that and lets his wife into the apartment before explaining to her that he broke the new table and cut himself in the process. Something which Maria finds absolutely hilarious due to the concept of the unbreakable table being in fact quite breakable. All throughout the dinner preparation, Maria laughs in his face at the idea of it breaking, with her saying that she wishes she could have been there for the moment it broke to really savor the look on his face. After laughing her head off, she goes to check on the baby, which has also laughed its head off. But Jesus manages to stop her from going to the crib, saying that he'll check on their son instead. After a close call of almost alerting the wife to the dead offspring, whoops, she wouldn't want to do that, the pair start to hear a dripping noise coming through the baby monitor. A dripping noise that Jesus rather morbidly discovers to be the sound of blood soaking through the crib and the mattress before dripping onto the floor below. Right after seeing the leak in the bedroom, Jesus' brother Carlos and his girlfriend Christina arrive to see the baby and have dinner. But not in that exact order, as Jesus tells them that they can't see the baby right now as he's deeply sleeping. Which is technically true. So instead, Maria shows off the room that the pair have recently finished decorating for him. A freshly painted room filled to the brim with toys that Jesus knows that the little boy will never get the chance to play with. He stands there, almost in complete silence, as everyone else excitedly talks about how much fun the child will have here, before Christina holds up a picture of the baby next to Jesus' face and asks him to smile to see if they look alike. After being faced with the unfathomable horror of being asked to smile, they leave the bedroom and sit down at the dinner table to eat what Maria has prepared, and Jesus looks down, horrified to see the sight of blood emerging from his omelette. But apparently he likes it medium rare, as he takes a bite out of it anyway, and while the blood from it is dripping out of his mouth, he looks into the other room to see his son's head beneath the chair, staring back directly at him. And while they're all on the topic of childbirth and how amazing it is to have babies, Carlos accidentally lets slip the fact that Christina is actually 4 months pregnant, and they're going to have a baby girl. Information that Jesus doesn't exactly seem pleased to hear, as he tells them that he has nothing to say on the matter, before in fact having something to say on the matter, as he then tells Carlos how much of a stupid idea it is for him to get an 18-year-old girl pregnant, as it will only complicate his life and ruin hers as well. Adding the mood of dinner to the list of things that he's killed today, Jesus then excuses himself to the bathroom. But while he's in there, recording a goodbye letter for Maria, explaining that he accidentally killed their son and he'll be dead too by the time she hears this. But Jesus, apparently not familiar with the concept of closing doors, has been overheard by his brother, who now knows everything. Like how much of an ugly coffee table that is. Jesus takes Carlos into the bedroom where the baby is, where Carlos pulls back the blanket to see that he's missing his head. After being horrified by the sight of seeing a baby but not fully rendered in, Carlos attempts to think of a way where he can make this seem as least traumatic as possible to Maria, while discussing with her the most traumatic thing possible. He tells Jesus that they'll go back to the dinner table, and Carlos will explain everything to Maria on Jesus' behalf. But before they can make it back to another bite of that succulent, juicy omelette, the doorbell rings. It's Ruth, who, true to her word, has come to tell Maria about their made-up relationship that she believes that she has with Jesus. Carlos and Jesus exit the room to see Maria standing there with Ruth, as Ruth has just told them about their apparent kiss that they both had while in an elevator. But before even having the time to process the fact that she's just been told that her husband is a by a delusional 13-year-old girl, Ruth's dog, who she brought into the apartment, discovers the severed head that Jesus refused to touch because he didn't want to get his hands dirty. Carlos picks the head up from the ground, and Christina begins to throw up, followed by Maria breaking out into a scream after realizing what it is that she's looking at. Clutching the head in her arms, she walks out towards the balcony before suddenly disappearing. Shortly followed by Jesus joining too, and this traditional Spanish children's story comes to its conclusion, with one severely psychologically damaged 13-year-old girl being even more psychologically damaged, while Carlos is in the back of a police car, repeating the same 3 words over again: the coffee table. You know, just in case you forgot what the movie was called. So before this video comes to an end, I'd like to just give a big shout out and a massive thank you to all of the YouTube members and patrons, the people who every month continue to go out of their way to help support the channel. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or patron yourself, not only are you just generally being a great support, but you also get access to a few little perks, like being able to join the private Discord server, where you can then get links to all uncensored versions of videos. Starting off with this week's new YouTube signups, a massive thank you to Clognut, Nicola Leibacher, Reese Hart, Ashley Taylor, The Soldier 420, Gaming Kitty X, Xi Alex, MCFC Wick, Raptor Proof A, Cameron Kelly, Francisco Cardenas Martin, Craig Ming, Sure, The Boy, Kristen Eriksdotter, Ananana, Aldo Strom, Glittery Carrot, Saucy, Bugsy04, Adam Smells, Mai, and Delusional MF. Now heading over to this week's new Patreon signups, a massive thank you to William Salanias, username TesBaby, Domtron, Black Bear, Jash Jashin, Jesse Ride, Christopher Riley, Destroyer Grey, Dark Sky Paradox, Jake, Bree, Adrian Williams, Judah Brown, With Love Shyla, George Diddles, Adam Richte, The Boy, Razza Plays, Aman Khatib, Joshua Harris, Crosby's Crown, James Anthony, Luke the Wiz 01, Twinkle, and Bailey Buglino. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.